because I don't think the dog's gonna come in. Hi everyone, we're live. Good morning, happy Sunday. It's feeling like fall here. April Jackson here, and hi Wesley, how are you?
Good morning, everybody. I'm doing well. I'm doing really good.
Yes, we're both in the well, Wes, you're considered Midwest.
I'm like bi-coastal. I'm like
Oh,
mid-coastal, whatever you want to call it. I'm never in the same place twice. No, I'm just
that's it.
playing. I am in the Midwest right now. So
Yeah, yeah, and I it's funny because people that I know who always talk about Pittsburgh, and they're always like, "I'm coming down there. I'm gonna be in New York, and I'm gonna come right on down to Philly." And I'm like, "I'm in Pittsburgh," and they're like, for some reason, it's hard for my people to understand. Like, Pittsburgh is on the other side of Pennsylvania, and even though we're considered like Northeast, I feel very Midwestern in this, Pittsburgh part.
no, very much so. And I will be honest, it is confusing sometimes when you think about Philly and Pittsburgh and like I'm like, am I going to Pittsburgh? No, it says Philly, but ain't they like right around the corner? It's
Right.
because I don't know, up there or up there or up there, wherever it is, gets confusing when you
Yeah.
try to like see certain areas, like the DC area, right? Like
Right.
you're like, oh well, I'm in DC, but 30 minutes later, I'm in Philly or I'm in Jersey or I'm in
Yep.
Virginia, right? Like it's like what?
I know. It's crazy that and it's funny from here, the drive to DC is shorter than the drive to Philly.
Wow.
You could get to DC in about 4 hours. Philly's like a 5-hour drive, which is crazy.
Mm,
State,
okay.
but
And good thing we talking about this because in a few days I actually go to Philly,
oh,
and then I'm going to DC, and then I'm speaking in Virginia, so I'm like taking a little
like
tour
a
down the
East Coast
line.
tour, Northeast tour.
If I can make it to New York, I will.
Nice.
So who
Yeah.
knows? But anybody that want to tap in with me, hey, make sure you just shoot me a message and tell me where the good food is.
That priority. Speaking of good food, I hope you all saw our newsletter for August. We'll have a September one. We recap the whole month, and we had a great time with each other at home. I call it home. Wes has called it home too. His wife
Yeah.
in LA. And when I say home, like Wes is like totally family, like with my family, doing all the family things.
I ate oysters for the first time.
Wes had oysters for the first time. How was that, Wes?
It was all right. I do it again though. I do it
You
again.
would? Okay. I'm holding you to that. All
But
right.
only you, April.
Okay, okay. Yeah, my aunt got on him too. She brought and dropped in that wisdom. And he fried a whole oyster. I was very proud. When you come back to Pittsburgh, we have an oyster space that we love. So I'm gonna take you there.
Oh,
Good times there too. So yeah, if you ever wonder like things that Wes and I have in common, food.
yes,
Food, food, food.
good food. So, um, I mean, of course, September is one. We're getting closer to the end of the year, which is
Yeah,
crazy, right?
yeah,
Like 2024 is around the corner. Goodness,
right,
when
right.
did we start this? April 2021.
It was 2021. Wow, that's
Oh my
crazy.
God. Like, s-
Yes,
oh my, listen, we done been through some trials and tribulations with you guys on these Sundays.
literally.
But, as we keep going around within the year, we come back to months like this that is
Mhm.
truly dear to my heart, of September being Spinal Cord Injury Awareness Month, as Hispanic Heritage Awareness Month. And
Yeah.
when it comes to the spinal cord injury, uh, I think it's very important to really hone in to this specific injury. A
Mhm.
lot of people don't I think, at least from my own experience, a lot of individuals don't understand spinal cord injury, so it
Yeah.
can be overlooked, or maybe just the mobility issue of the injury is what most people just focus on. So, to elaborate, meaning that because I'm paralyzed from the waist down due to a spinal cord injury, most people think that's all I deal with. But
Hmm.
individuals with spinal cord injury deal with a lot of underlying um, issues, such as PTSD, anxiety, depression, obesity, severe health conditions, isolation. Um, it's just countless things that I think, when I hear the awareness about disabilities as a broad, I'm always thinking to myself, well, which part can I identify with, but then also what do I leave out, because there's only space for a small part of what I actually deal with. And so that's how I feel when we talk about spinal cord injury. Is it seems that because this injury is so complex and that
Hmm.
it does have so many different areas, that most people only can focus on one thing, which might be the mobility issue, and
Yeah.
not really talk about the nerve pain and the things that you're dealing with internally, because there's no space.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so important that you brought that into this space to with me, and we're talking about disability, and you're like, there are various reasons why people are immobile or in a wheelchair. We've interviewed people and spoken to people that don't have a SCI, or who are able to stand up and move in some way and then sit back down. And that's the diversity within the disabled community, right? Like, not everybody has the same thing. It's not a monolith. It's the same thing we talk about with us being Black. Like,
Yeah.
we don't all think the same, we don't all do the same. And it's really important to meet people where they are, and to understand and to learn and to be educated from those of our friends who have the lived experience.
Well, I mean, but then you think about it, like you said, with being Black, or because this is Hispanic Heritage Awareness Month, like there are a lot of people that represent the Hispanic heritage that
Mhm.
intersect with disability.
Yeah.
But how many of us actually are focusing on the identity of that as much as they're focused on the identity of the disability? And same as with African Americans, in which, for one thing that I can say that there is a combination between Black and Brown communities, is that they're both overlooked when it comes to spinal cord injuries. Most of their injuries are due to violent acts compared to a lot of our white counterparts. And so, with that being said, that there's lack of resources that come to individuals that acquire a spinal cord injury due to some type of violent event.
Mhm.
And that again affects more Black and Brown communities. So the intersectionality of spinal cord injury, when I look at TV a lot and I see people representing spinal cord injury, all I do is see older white men in wheelchairs. Or if you see
Mm.
like
Oh,
a
that's a good
TV show,
point. Like the movies that come out.
yeah, like I think about the one that I felt kind of alignment with was the one where Kevin Hart was like the
Yep,
caretaker, right?
yep.
Like, and I'm like, I caught it, but why couldn't the roles could be reversed a little bit, to show the visibility? Or like, one of my favorite shows that kind of gave me some power, and it wasn't all one race, but you could tell the lens, and it was Push Girls, which was an older show, and it was like for women in wheelchairs, that I think all had spinal cord injuries. Great show. I highly recommend anyone watch it. It was one of those things that gave me power, but at the same time, there wasn't really that strong minority presence, let me put it like that, for me to grasp it. It was kind of like, as you see a lot of things when you think about diversity, there's one brown person and it's like a whole group of others.
Everybody else, all the white folks.
So even on TV shows or anything, you always see it. I think I seen like an old sitcom from the 90s, and I can't think, was it Saved by the Bell? It was one of them. It was just like one Black person. I think it was the Black girl. And the
Yeah.
younger one, and it was just everybody else, right? Like, and so I think about when you think about the lens of spinal cord injury, a lot of that is perceived that way because who wants to talk to someone that's been shot, right? And when you perceive
Mhm.
that as a person that is from these Black and brown communities, their stories are a lot heavier, their trauma
Mhm.
is a lot heavier. And I'm not
Mhm.
saying that someone else's trauma isn't, but I'm saying that
Right.
society has this thing of trying to push away Black and brown trauma because it's heavy. And
Yeah.
most of society created that trauma. So they don't want to be able to look in the mirror when they have to reflect on or listen to someone with the complexities of their injury, meaning
Yes.
listen, I have a spinal cord injury. You can identify with that. But as a Black man, I'm dealing with poverty, which you might not can identify with. I'm dealing with living in a food desert, which you might not can identify with. My best friend just got shot yesterday. You might not can identify with. My cousin was killed last week. You might not. And again, so on. Or because of what I identify with, what I just watched on TV yesterday and the world saw, now I'm dealing with that trauma on top of my injury.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just all of those things when I think about spinal cord injury and I think about reason why it's always pushed out. So when I get the opportunity to shed light on something that I highly represent, and
Mhm.
because of personal experience of having a spinal cord injury and being put in a position where I'm a voice for disability, but not spinal cord injury, I truly understand the narrative that is constantly being pushed. So
Right.
I take ownership in this month and really try to represent for those individuals that went through the same thing as me and need to look at me in a mirror when they're looking at themselves to understand that there's someone breaking that barrier.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Um, you said something, spinal cord injuries. I am making an assumption that it's always coming from some type of injury, right? It's not a disability you're born with, right? Unless some trauma happens to the spine, car accident, shooting, you
Mhm.
fell. I had a friend who fell and ended up with a spinal cord injury. So the trauma, like you said, is really real because there is a traumatic event that
Mhm.
creates a spinal cord injury. Am I correct in saying
Yep,
that?
absolutely. Very rare is it someone is born with the spinal cord injury, something that is in similarity to a spinal cord injury would be someone that is born with spinal bifida.
Okay. Yeah, and yeah, those are the important things, the little nuances, right? Because I would
Yeah.
think the only way you'd be born with a spinal cord injury, the word injury being the key word, is if something traumatic happened in the birth canal
Yeah,
or, actually in delivery or something.
absolutely.
And then I know you've mentioned and uh, where the spinal cord injury happens, that's something too, like, that we should have an awareness of. I
It
shared with you yesterday, I was teaching those high schoolers. I was
Mhm.
talking to them about moving the body and trying to maintain flexibility, and I was like, "Do you all know the spine, like the cervical spine, the thoracic spine, the lumbar spine?" Just education, and they were like, "Oh, we didn't know," but this is important, right, with spinal cord injury, depending on where the injury is in the spine, it'll affect people in different ways.
Absolutely. I think that when people are asking me questions about my spinal cord injury, sometimes it's hard to give a correct answer to their issue because
Mhm.
our injury cannot be the same level, or it could be at the same level, but it was caused in different ways. So someone that has been in a car accident will have a different effect than someone that was dealing with some gunshot wound or something due to trauma to the spine in some way. Or like you said, like I've had a couple individuals that had falls, like their injuries are different. Someone that might have bruised their spinal cord and lost mobility at some point might regain mobility because the spinal cord was bruised and not damaged.
Mm,
And so even that, like there are temporary injuries that can occur. And then there are some that will, you know, become incomplete or complete. So an incomplete injury, you might get some mobility back, some sensation back,
mhm,
and complete, you know, that's just kind of like you're at a little to no um,
Mhm.
hope in a sense of kind of regaining strength based on a medical standpoint. And so for
Yeah.
me, like I have an incomplete injury, a T11, T12. And so, but again, injuries change. So like when you think about um, bowel and bladder and all the things that people deal with,
Mhm.
pain, I've met people that um, due to their injury or the way that their injury was caused, they don't have as much pain as someone else.
Mm.
So
Mm.
again, like all of that is affected. And so understanding that each individual is different and to understand what they're going through to be able to create a solution or just be able to create empathy would be the best thing that we could do. Because if we look at someone and think that, oh, this person can do what Wes can do, because just because I can climb a rope in a wheelchair don't mean that a T1 or a C1 or someone like that could do the same thing. And when you think about injury, you
Mhm.
have quadriplegic and paraplegic. So these are both causes by the spinal cord, but one would take away your mobility of your hands, some arm function, but you might have more function in a core, right? Then the other
Mhm.
might take away the core function, but give you more function in your other body. So yes, it's very complex. It
Yeah.
is, but again, that's where we just take that understanding that each individual is different. And so whoever we're serving or just
Mhm.
getting to know, they should know themselves enough. And so,
Mhm.
or to the point that they can tell you who they are, then you can kind of lead from that part of the identity and not just off of the perception that you see.
Yeah. I think you and I have shared this a few times in this space. It's like it's okay to ask questions. Like if you treat people with respect and with dignity and with honor, you know, engage in conversation and ask if you don't know. Don't make assumptions if you cannot. Like, please don't make assumptions. Engage with people, and if they feel comfortable, and you can even ask, like, "Hey, do you feel comfortable if I sit and talk with you and try to understand and share?" That's how you share experiences. Now, what we are not suggesting is that you put somebody on blast or you assume that or you do it in an inappropriate space like in the grocery store. I don't know, depending on what's happening, but, if I'm gonna better know someone, in any relationship, right? You wanna date, you wanna talk, you wanna get to know somebody, be it a boss or a friend or a loved one or whatever, get to know people and meet them where they are.
Mm.
Um,
But I think that that's for anything and
right.
anyone. But I like the fact that even you spoke about dating. That's one topic that a lot of people don't cover when it comes to spinal cord injury.
Mm,
And I think the misconceptions is the reason why I like the dating pool and disability is so different.
mm,
Um, and a lot of stuff comes from our own thought processes of how we see ourselves and the individual we're looking at.
mm,
And if you already have limited mindset to someone in a wheelchair despite their injury because you never gave yourself time to understand it,
right,
then you're prone to thinking of how you would see yourself in that position. So if
right.
you don't think that you're dateable in a wheelchair, why would you want to date someone in a wheelchair? Right? Like if you don't think that you will be physically appealing or something, it's just the same thing. And so I always feel like most of the discrimination when it comes to disability is based off of our own thought processes of how we see ourselves with that injury.
Mhm,
And that does cause a huge issue. And one of my good friends, Stephanie Thomas, told me on a call one day, she said, these, we was talking, it was real serious, and Steph would be
yeah,
okay with me sharing and dropping a bomb. But it was like,
mhm,
these people are creating a world that they wouldn't want to live in.
mm,
And it was just that simple, right? Like,
yeah,
and so when it comes to all things of disability, if you mirror yourself how would you want to live in the world? Would you want to live in a world with barriers? Would you want to live in a world thinking that you can't be loved, or you can't have access, or you can't be
Right.
accepted or welcomed because you can have a disability in 5 minutes from now? Right. And so, with that being said, and trust me, it's not a heavy conversation, because even an individual like me that didn't think that I was going to end up having my disability, but did,
Right. Right.
trust and believe it's a reality that we all should know. And so, with that being said, how do we want to live? Don't wait till you have to walk your kids in a stroller to understand the issues with the curbs. Pay attention to the for the individuals that are outside already. Like, these things are all in front of us for us to create a world we will live in, despite the circumstances that we're living in. And
Right.
so, just being mindful of that, being mindful, and then again honing back on just the Hispanic community, just because of the mixture of the months, and being able to acknowledge the intersections. And then, if you are a part of these groups, I'm not going to check out our Black History Month one if you want to hear our input on how we feel the effect of the Black community and disabled community has a disconnect, because we definitely have talked about that. But for
Mhm.
this one, what I want to do is just say, like, for individuals that do intersect with the Hispanic community, hey, we need all communities to understand that there are individuals that belong in your conversations, that have value to the voice, because before they identify with disability, they identify with what you do. And the only
Yeah.
difference with them today is that they identify with multiple things, because that's what they represent. And so we need to make sure that we acknowledge that, and we hone that into that. So if you're having functions this month and activities, make sure that they're accessible, because you're trying to accept and bring people in that actually, want to be a part of it, right? Like, and so that's the thing, we think about bigger, when we're doing these events. I drove the other day and I seen an event going on. It was a barbecue event, Kansas City for barbecue.
Right.
I just looked and I was like, there's no way I would be comfortable in, like, the way it was set up.
Yeah.
And that created a barrier, for me before I could even get out the car. I didn't want to go, right? Like, and I
Yeah.
think that a lot of individuals are like me. I'm not going to wait to get to the gate for you to tell me I don't belong here. I could see it through the struggle you're
Mhm.
creating.
Mhm.
So, but y'all, I'm sharing this because in a month where I'm seeing a lot of festivals happening, I'm seeing a lot of
Yeah.
things. I'm just saying, be mindful. Sometimes a lot of these park events ain't accessible, so you got to put some stuff on the street a little bit or something. I mean, just again, these wheels ain't good for the mud. Spinal cord injury awareness month, like, we got to represent, So, uh, yeah, but I do believe that, if we open our minds up, if we create access for individuals in wheelchairs and individuals that live with spinal cord injury, we are creating
Mhm.
access for everyone. Because again, a person can be deaf and blind and have a spinal cord injury. A person can be an amputee but also have a spinal cord injury. A person can have a traumatic brain injury, but also have a spinal cord injury. Like, there are so many things that we can't just handle one issue and then avoid the other, you know.
Yeah.
And so, being able to make sure that we bring all of that together and look at the person as a human, create universal design, create all these
That's what
different
I was thinking, universal design, talk
like,
about
it's
that,
the
like
solutions are in front of us. It's just that our minds need to be put from the back to the front, because we too far thinking behind us instead of thinking in front of us.
yeah. We, had a good interview with Ashley Lauren, and, she's Latina.
Okay.
And Ashley and Nikki have a story, and they're quadriplegic. One's a quadriplegic and one is a paraplegic, and they're twin sisters. And their story is pretty powerful.
Love
Um,
Ashley. Love my girl Ashley.
and they were in a car accident.
They was. They
And
definitely was. And their story, to me, their story is just so powerful. One sister ended up a paraplegic, the other ended up a quad. And just watching their journey of trying to get back to life. I
mhm,
think that's the other thing. It's like, I can go and say, all right, this person was shot, but this person was injured to a work accident, fell off the ladder, got electrocuted. Shout out to my boy, I love you. And
mhm, mm,
or Anna, who was training for the Olympics, right? Like, and
Mhm.
missed the box when she was landing, spinal cord injury. There are countless ways that we can acquire an injury. The
Right.
issue is, once we identify with that injury, how do we become individuals back into society when society finds itself not welcoming to us once we acquire the injury? So it's like all of these individuals were people that everyone praised in some way before their injury, and then after their injury, the story doesn't become, oh, this person after injury living good life is this person. How do they get back to living life after injury? And we
Mhm.
need to take away, how do people get back to living life? Because if we were accepting society, it wouldn't be hard for people to get back to a new normal, because
Right.
they've already seen how society accepts that normal.
And that's what ableism is, right?
Yep.
Is you discriminate and you hold a prejudice against people who have a physical disability or mental disability because they don't seem able, based on a norm that society has decided was what we're going to do. Everybody needs to look this way, act this way, and be this way in their bodies. And it seems to happen immediately, like you said. Somebody's athletic, everything's fine, and a misses, and then she's injured. And it's like, oh, we have to discard you now, or we're not going to give you the same. And why? It's that's still the same human being,
The
the
same
same
person,
person.
but um, society has found, and we've made some great strides. Don't get me wrong. You see, wheelchair mannequins in the store now and stuff. Look.
What's that look?
You're starting to see some things happening, where it's being pushed forward, but
Hmm.
there's just still a disconnect, and it's a lot of, we have to change things in order to fix things, and most people don't want to fix things because they don't want to change things. And
Yeah.
so the world has to go into a different, the whole narrative of how we see people. It's not just about people with disabilities, because I feel like if I was seen better as a black man, maybe my disability wouldn't be so hard.
Yeah.
So I think that, within society as itself, if we start to like, shouldn't be so many movements based on identities being accepted. If we accept identity for whatever it is, then we move forward and start to see people for who they are. And I
Yeah.
think that that's just it, right? Like, it doesn't matter anything else. It's just that the issue is, I don't want to accept your identity. And that's the hard part, is that most people, and that's not my fault, that most of society wanted to follow a particular identity, back in the day.
You.
There
Right.
was there was a structure, there was a design that everyone followed, and now people are decoding a system and creating the identity that they want. Getting out the matrix, right? Like, that's what it is. And I think with that, is is creating some discomfort,
It's a lot.
but
Yeah, a lot of discomfort.
we disrupt through discomfort, right? Like,
Yeah.
we can disrupt the system and create a better system that actually influences society instead of society influencing the system.
And I it's exciting. It's exciting to me, even with the hard work, even, when you make the mistakes or you say the wrong things, it's all learning, and learning and growing. And it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to say, I don't know what it's like to be a Black woman or a Black man or whatever, and still have enough empathy to honor that and to give space to those of us who do have that. Like, let you be who you are. It doesn't mean that it's going to take away from who I am. Um,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
right? It's not going to take away, and that's why we try to come on here. We wanted to bring up National Hispanic Month, which people know. September 15th is the kickoff of it. It's the day, and it's for a month to October 15th. And it's just to honor um, um, the culture and contributions of the Hispanic and Latino Americas. Because, Latin America is huge. And when we talk about culture and roots, there was a TikTok and a comedian was like, "I know our food's the best." He was a Latino guy. He's like, "Everybody wants a Taco Tuesday. Nobody wants a Meatloaf Monday." It was so funny. I fell out, and he was like, "I'm from Miami. We don't ever call each other up talking about, yo, let's go get some like, American food." So, we honor people in certain ways, but we acculturate in this society and we honor them, but we don't respect. And that's what I hear you two kind of saying, Wes, like, you don't respect me as a Black man. So you're not really like honoring who I am.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
important.
Respect, period, is important just because you don't know who individuals are, and
Mhm.
we shouldn't hold ourselves to thinking that we do without opening up that person's book.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, and I still have this issue today. Everybody don't know Wes is on TV. Um, I don't know who don't know, but everybody doesn't know. And sometimes I find myself being out, and which is okay, but I'm definitely treated as the person that I'm constantly advocating for.
Mm.
And it's because people can see and how they perceive is how they feel or how they want to. That's just what it is, and it doesn't
Mhm.
matter. Like my story can be inspiring to someone, but my life isn't. Right,
Mm.
like, and
Mm.
so I've realized that too. Like, some people don't want to know how I live. They just
Yeah.
want to know like how, maybe what I've done. And that's a cool thing based on my life, but my life still isn't cool. Like, in
Mhm.
normalizing my life to be okay is kind of the biggest thing that can be done.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I definitely, yeah, April, I've felt that in many ways of just I am inspiring, but when it comes to my life itself, that's one of them things that still look down on.
Mm. Mhm. And when the thing that I was looking for a statistic because I know I've read it before, but like it says 48 million people have a disability in our world. And when we look at the percentages of those with disabilities, when we talk about it's Hispanic Awareness Month, a lot of our Black and brown sisters, because there's Afro Latina, right? You think of like Cardi B, she's Afro Latina, like you have so many people who you wouldn't even know necessarily that are Latino and Latina, but there is a huge population of those with disabilities who are of Latin descent. And again, the medical care
Mhm.
that's being received is subpar to like what you were saying, Wesley. Most of the images you see like on TV, which I thought about is like he's right. Like the rich white guy in the wheelchair being helped and supported by somebody else. And the black guy who's in the wheelchair is always broke
It's
down.
Snoop Dogg in Training Day.
Exactly. Exactly.
Or oh boy on Boys in the Hood, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but that's what you see. It's a whole different, like, why couldn't I be wealthy enough to have help and live a good life? Instead, I'm out here selling crack rock in my teeth. Like, that's just real. And it's the so that's the image that I have to grow up to see and who I become.
Mhm.
Right. Like, again, that's what we get to when it comes to that.
Yeah. And the thing is that there's equity and access to all, then everybody should have access to medical care regardless of their economic status, regardless of the color of their skin. But that's not what we are finding. And that's why you and I promote like speaking and
Mhm.
sharing, educating ourselves, educating others, like putting it out there in our face. Because if you serve one part of our society, you serve us all. And that's really, really important. So, question for you. Are there groups or organizations that you can think of that people can support, or if they have a SCI, become a part of, or is that should that even be a thing? Like, what kind of support systems are out there
Uh,
specific to SCI?
I personally, I truly believe that if you have a spinal cord injury, you should definitely find a support system, a group, because once you get around a lot of other individuals that are similar to you in some way, you start to see life becoming a little bit easier. I've seen that many times.
Mm,
We do find that when you acquire a disability and you go through that isolation process, sometimes you don't want to be around someone with the same disability because it makes you feel different. And so finding those circles and communities are great. I also highly recommend finding different groups that represent disabilities outside of your own. Sometimes
mm,
that is empowering in itself as well. It allows you to understand that you're not the only one going through something, and someone else could be going through something completely different. Creates a level of gratitude.
yeah,
Um, the
yeah.
Christopher Reeve Foundation really takes a lot of their work and focuses on spinal cord injuries. If you don't know who that was, he was like the very first Superman actor, I think. And so his story is very powerful. But they have a lot of resources, mentorship, and they do live seminars and webinars on online and things. So Christopher Reeves Foundation, the Craig H. Nielsen Foundation is also another organization that focuses primarily on spinal cord injury. They do a lot of grant work and start to amplify individuals that have spinal cord injury that wants to live a better quality of life. So education, things like that, that's a great resource. The Disabled But Not Really Foundation, founded by your boy right here. And we are definitely geared to helping individuals with spinal cord injuries get back out into society and honing into the identity that they would love to create as of now after injury. And If I could think of one more, and there again, I think every state has a spinal cord injury association.
I didn't know that.
The United Spinal Cord Injury Association is, I want to say it's in every city. If not, they have a larger office where you can reach out to them and talk to them about all different things, activity, sports. Again, there's a lot of resources. Those two primary, the Craig H. Nielsen Foundation or the Christopher Reeve Foundation, can put you in the right direction. And then, yeah, Challenge Athletes Foundation. The Challenge Athletes Foundation, known as CAF Foundation, they're also a great resource for athletics. So if you
Mhm.
are a person with a spinal cord injury that is really trying to get into some type of physical activity and just wanting to know what's out there, the CAF Foundation is great with those resources. They also provide grants every year. So if you need a new
Oh, really?
wheelchair that can help you work out like Wes, get these guns, CAF was the one that helped me out. So, last one, because the Kelly Brush Foundation, BRUSH, they are also focused directly on spinal cord injury and provide grants for adaptive equipment.
Mm.
See, I got all that in my
Oh,
head.
yeah.
I didn't have to look for
You
nothing.
are a wealth of information. I was gonna say that at the end of this. I was like, "Look at look at, Wesley dropping all the information."
I'm telling
Nice.
you, I want to make sure that when I get to somebody and serve them, they got a one-stop shop.
There you go. I'm writing it all down too because I dropped a few in the, chat, and Marissa may or may not be able to share, but we're gonna put all this in the newsletter.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll, specifically put this in the newsletter because, I mean, Wes, you were just like, "Yes, yes, yes." But just to know that there are resources and that there is support and there is education, because education is the key to when you know yourself and you know your body. Oh, thank you, Marissa. She shared them on it. Um, and you're not alone. And like you said, you did something that kind of makes me bring us to why we do this. Gratitude, like meet with people who have different disabilities than your own, and try to get into community. And it does get hard because sometimes you just like you're depressed literally, and you don't even want to be bothered with folks. And I know, sometimes you just want to retreat and go in. I'm speaking from my own experience, but getting out when you're ready and when you can, is a really good way to support yourself and to know that you can apply for grants, because equipment is expensive.
So here, that's another thing. Okay, let's just get there.
For real.
Okay, I want to live my life. I want to get outside. I want to do everything that everyone else does. But then I realized that the other thing that I have to face is equipment,
Yeah.
and access comes beyond just getting out the door, right? So equipment is an issue. Wheelchairs are expensive. I'm rolling around on a BMW right now, and that's in two ways. But my wheelchair, I always call it a BMW because
BMW.
it was like 1,200, like $12,000. That was the invoice, and I'm like,
Wow.
I could break down a Ford Mustang that I found in the salvage yard, you know what I mean, and try to build a
12,000. Wow.
$12,000, right? So someone, okay, but so someone with a spinal cord injury that's on a fixed income or on Medicaid or Medicare, they only receive a new wheelchair every 5 years. There's a lot of things that can change with your body within 5 years. So if you have something like that and you can't pay for it out of pocket, you got to wait 5 years. So those grants are very important.
Yeah.
When it comes to hospitality, a lot of doorways aren't big enough for wheelchairs, so be mindful of that. So sometimes, again, those grants help you get a smaller narrow chair that actually is
Mm.
accustomed to your body. um, so yeah, I just wanted to share that because there's the cost of it. They're standing frames, but they're expensive, so you normally have to find somewhere to go to be able to get the recovery that you want every day. And then
Yeah.
also let's talk about the size of equipment. Like, and that takes away confidence. I'm sorry, it is Spinal Cord Injury Awareness Month, y'all. Like, think about being injured. Say you was injured 2 months, you go to hospital and rehab, and then they send you home with a hospital bed. Now, let's just say you had this nice little headboard and this big bed, and you just felt like the king every time you
Yeah.
hopped in your bed. And now you got to come back with this bed
With
with
your
rails
hospital
on it.
bed.
And in reality, the bed has value, right?
Mhm.
Like, the
Mhm.
bed has value, but the image of the bed and what it does for the individual
Right.
um, doesn't have value. And
Right.
so it's kind of like for me, I just got an adjustable head base. But did anyone tell me I could go get an adjustable base? No, they said, oh, you need a hospital bed,
And
right?
that's what you thought you needed to have. And that puts you in the mindset of like, I'm sick.
Exactly.
Um, I'm still like in the hospital. I'm ugh.
No matter how much I've grown or how much I've overcome, I'm down. I'm down and
Yeah.
out due to this injury, right? Like
Yeah.
in this hospital bed and all this equipment that they keep giving me is a reminder of that every day.
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
barriers of, if you don't believe me when it comes to cost of things, just go try to look up accessible hotel room and question yourself on why are they more expensive than regular rooms, and there's not even a lot of them available.
I was gonna say, then a lot of times you don't get the room that you requested.
You don't get the room. So
Um,
yeah.
Also, I was just wondering about when you're talking about, the cost of things with the grants. Um, if you're given a grant, do you know, and I don't know, like, do you know if it accounts towards the income that you've received that year? Because then there's that whole thing that you don't receive your disability if you make so much money. So do you know, like, when you apply for these grants, are they just gift in kind, or do people have to report those, and will it affect
Um,
financially?
honest, that's a great question. That's a really great question, and that's
Mhm.
one that unfortunately I haven't truly explored, but I will
Yeah,
starting today. And
yeah.
I would say that majority of them are in kind. A
Mhm.
lot of them are coming from nonprofit organizations. So I want to say, but that is a great question. So if you do start to go and apply for a grant, question and ask them,
Right.
how do you report it at the end of the year so that you can make sure that you're covered? Because, like April said, the issue, and this is for all people with disabilities, the income, there's an
Mhm.
issue there, right? Like you
Mhm.
can't if you're married, you could lose benefits if you and your spouse makes more money. There's issues coming from taxes. There's just so much. Like you literally can only work. Like I think when I was told, it's like if you can work with a disability, then you must not be disabled.
Mm.
And so,
No, that's crazy. Somebody
so
said that?
no, that's literally how they operate because it's like,
Yeah,
well, we don't want to give you benefits because you can do stuff, but
right,
I could do stuff today, might not can do everything tomorrow. And most
right,
people don't understand that when it comes to disability. I'm not going to be limited today due to how you see me, but that
right,
doesn't mean that the resources might not can help me on that time period that I can't do anything anymore. Like
right,
just because I acquired a disability at the age of 24 doesn't mean my life should stop at the age of 24. But
right,
I might need all these services later on. But it's more or less it's like, well, if you sign up for something, you're already saying you can't do anything else no more.
yeah,
So
yeah,
once we take that from you, now it's a process for you to prove that you're still disabled because you've proved you're more able than a disabled person. It's the craziest thing.
really a setup, it's really a setup, and, last month, we talked about Disability Employment Month and how wonderful it is and how companies have really, shown that having disabled staff has been really beneficial for the company itself, which we know is just like hire Black folks, hire our Latino and Latina brothers and sisters. Like diversity really brings something to a company as it brings something into our country. So, well, for people who are watching this now or watching this later, Wes and I will do our research too and let you know and use us as a resource. Open Up Pittsburgh, use that as a resource, disabled but not really, because we're doing all this to support each other and to support others as well. Um, I'm gonna go
Absolutely.
ahead.
I think before we end April,
Mhm.
I'm gonna pull up some statistics just for Spinal Cord Injury Awareness Month. Um, let's see. Okay, so just so people can really understand where we're coming from when we're talking about SCI and like I think I don't know where you can see yourself and how we can potentially help individuals that have these injuries and become more successful within society and all of that. All right. I had to throw out all of those things. All right. So it's around 300,000 individuals with spinal cord injury in the US. And that was based off of Dr. Google. And according to it, it's around 17,000 individuals acquire spinal cord injury every year.
Mm.
So again, that is in the US. Globally is another issue, and the things that we're dealing with in the US, people in other countries are dealing with on a more significant level because a lot of other countries aren't as advanced as ours. So to understand the limitations that are still being done here, you can only imagine what it looks like somewhere else. But um, yeah, so it's not if but when.
Yeah.
And a few examples like myself, I was shot, someone else could have diving accidents, sport accidents, car accidents, work accidents, home accidents, medical accidents. Like there are so many
Yes.
ways that you
Yeah.
can acquire spinal cord injury that we should all just be mindful, educate ourselves on it because when we serve someone with an SCI, we're
Mhm.
truly becoming more mindful and shifting the way that we can serve everybody else. And
Mhm.
that's just the reality of it.
Yeah, in ways that you and I have found uh, um, an equal landing ground, like is through wellness and mindfulness and exercise and being able to help settle your nervous system. Like when we talk about that PTSD, like it's real important that we take time to, just breathe and try to find our space, because this is all like heavy stuff. It's very, very stressful. And so Wes and I know, and we agree, like if we can do things to support each other, and when we say each other, community, through mindfulness practices. So that's where you see, like every day you'll see Wes kind of post his book of his daily affirmations, and I write in my journals, and we try to share, right? Because we know like that can really help. It's not going to change the situation, but it can change your mindset. And in changing your mindset, it can help you shift and move in ways that'll better support you. So for everyone out there, we want to continue to encourage you. Do your meditations, write your stuff down, breathe, do what you can to take care of you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Anything else, Wes? I know you were on a reading strike, but then I saw you been going to the bookstore. I was like, he must be back.
Listen, you see my little I
Yes.
my bigger dream is to have like a home where I'm just surrounded by this huge library, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just insane. So I'm gonna start small. I, it's crazy. I am reading a book right now, but I'm
And,
actually like, well, I'm listening to it, and it's about relationships.
ah,
It's just how to have healthy relationships, and so I think one of my things been sticking with me since my Israel trip is building better relationships um, and how to do that. I think those 8 days were just a great way to, like, I got to know 20 plus people in 8 days through
mhm,
practices, right? Like, and so to become more knowledgeable on that. So I guess you can say I want to become more humane in a way, and understand like the human individual even deeper.
yeah.
So I'm reading books that are kind of speaking on that. Plus, I want to go back to school April, so I'm trying to go back. Yeah, and take up philosophy. Um, and I don't know where that'll take me, but I think my interest is where the books are becoming more exciting to grab. Like I'm
Yeah.
grabbing more on history and travel and people, and it's just been a fun thing. So yeah, so relationships is what I'm looking at, so I can become a more better communicator, and as well as someone that leads with empathy completely.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that, Wes. That's opening up your vulnerable side, and I appreciate it. I've been reading Rest is Resistance by Trisha Hershey, and she started the NAP ministry out of
Mm,
Atlanta. And I've been really enjoying reading her book. I've been following her for years. But one thing that's really stuck out to me with this reading this time is that we consider like rest is essential for the human body, period. Like we're
mhm,
talking about healing, right? What do? You rest, you sleep, you give your body time to do what it can, and to restore itself. But we also think of rest as a luxury. Like I'm gonna go to the spa, and
mhm.
I'm not condemning anybody. Wes knows me. um, I have to go out of my house. I have to go somewhere else to rest. And you don't have to. You can take agency over yourself and take care of yourself on the day to day. We talked about working, and people think like, oh, if you can work, then you don't deserve to get support. You don't deserve to rest. And that's not what it
Mhm.
is about. So that's what I've been reading. I've been reading Outlive by Dr. Atia, which is really good. And yeah, still trucking along.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you for sharing that with us as well, April. I actually got rest over here, I think.
Oh, do you?
I feel like I do. I feel like
Okay.
I've literally seen that.
Did I send it to you? Didn't I
I
send
feel
it?
like you might have sent it to me. Is
Yeah.
it like a reddish?
Yeah.
Yep, I got it.
I think I sent Nevaeh a book, and I sent you a book, and I think I may have sent
I'm
it
like,
to
for
you.
some reason, it's like in my head. Yeah. So, oh, April, before we get off, just so back there, over there, got my little record area, and you see my
Yes.
little Crenshaw skateboard. Like I got my little Nipsey, little vinyls going on. Like, yeah, LA is
Beautiful.
definitely has a piece of me, and it's
Yeah.
always gonna have a piece of me. So, yeah,
We got to take another trip. Listen, friends, and we want you all to do that too. Get out, explore the world. Wes and I are looking forward. We were just talking as we were prepping, like we're planning 2024.
yep.
So
So
hopefully,
if you wanna tap in, you wanna be interested in getting on one of these episodes, share your knowledge, awareness around any of these different
yeah,
months. We're truly planning our calendar, and we'll be really excited if you guys would like to join us. So feel
hmm
free to inbox me or April or open
yeah,
up and see how you can be involved.
yeah, yeah. Because one thing we wanted to share, and we emphasize this every time, like this is Hispanic Latino Awareness Month. It's not just a month where we talk about it. Like we want to talk about it every single day. We want to embrace culture and everyone's culture, and because we do, we bring it into ourselves. And SCI isn't just this month. Like it's every like people live with it every single day, and so we want to continuously, highlight and bring forth what's happening in our
Yeah.
community. So, yeah, tap in with us. Yes, you don't want to see me and Wes talking every month, or maybe
No,
you do.
maybe
Maybe
you
you
do. We all for it. So everybody have an amazing week. And yeah, just advocate for someone that is different than you because it's just the right thing to do. That's how we
do.
start.
Yeah, it's good. I like that you ended on that. Let's end with that.